want to be aware, gang. We want to be aware of the people who come into us. Doesn't matter how busy we are. We still, our team and us, the doctors, want to be aware of people. Hey everybody, and welcome to the CCC webinar today. And I want to talk about a lot of things today. And first I want to read the word in 1 Corinthians 1:19. Actually, 1 Corinthians 1:9, verse 20. And to the Jews I became as a Jew that I might win Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, that I may win those who are under the law. To those who are without law, as without law, not being without law toward God, but under law toward Christ, that I might win those who are without law. To the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. So I don't want to take anything out of context, but Paul became all things to all men, right? To the Jew, he was a Jew. To say a Roman, he became a Roman, right? So he was switching it up, in my opinion, to reach people for Christ. Well, when people come into our offices, it's kind of the same. New patients, they're different, right? We all have our own thumbprint. So you need to know, in my opinion, the different generations that come into you. And I've spoken about this before, but we need to really be clear and review the different generations. I'm just going to give you some examples here, and I'm going to read some things like the Gen X generation, right? So the Gen X generation are born in the mid 1960s to early 80s, right? So they the first Gen Xers kind of border the late baby boomers, and the late Gen Xers kind of border the millennials. So sometimes you need to be a little bit flexible in understanding the mindset of the different generations of people that come into your office, and so does your team. It's not just, black and white, right? That everybody's the same. It's just not that simple. Like Paul said, right? I mean, if Paul spoke to a Jewish person to win them to Christ, like he was going to speak to a Roman, it probably is not going to happen. There's cultural differences. There was for sure religious differences, and the same with people that come into us, the different generations, right? And different occupations and different walks of life. So, example, right? So a Gen X, they value flexibility. They want financial security. They prefer independence, to make their own choices. And they're interested in health and wellness. So that's a big plus for us. When they come in, right, most Gen Xers, they're already interested in health and wellness. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. They're coming in, right? They need help, and they obviously wouldn't be in your office if they didn't seek help. Even though some people come into our offices and they could be in a relationship, say with or their child could be a different generation, obviously, than they are, and their child could be like a teenager or a young adult, and that young adult is not interested in health and wellness and doesn't want to be there. That's a different situation than when a Gen X comes in. We already know that they're interested in health and wellness, right? But they're also very interested in financial security. So when it comes to finances, right, in corrective care, we really have to give them the complete plan of them having the understanding of why for health and wellness that they need this, and why financially that it's so important for them, and basically that they can't do money is worth it. The money that they're going to pay is going to be worth the value of health and wellness. So then I'm just throwing out a few examples here, and then I'm going to move on because I'm kind of building here. And then we the boomer generation, or rather the millennial generation, 1981 to 1996. They're tech savvy. They're the first and by the way, the Gen Xers are the first generation to use computers. The first generation that were raised using computers. So if we're doing Zoom calls, like a Zoom webinar or a Zoom health class, whatever it may be, they're going to be more able and probably like those type of workshops, as well as live workshops, like when we went through COVID and we were doing, Dr. Ben and I had, and Dr. Eric had recommended doing Zoom health talks, Zoom workshops, high percentage of Gen Xers watching. So the millennial, right? They're the first generation to really be raised on social media, right? So they're social media savvy. So they're going to be more in tune to looking up on Instagram, right? Your Instagram advertising, your social media advertising, right? They're going to be more into that. And that's a great way of getting more millennials in, and through social media, because they're social media savvy, right? And they value experiences. So when a millennial comes in, we want to make sure that they're getting a phenomenal wow experience, in my opinion, of this is just incredible. They see the big TV in your waiting room. There's testimonials playing. It's a visual generation. They look around, they see testimonials on the walls, and it's different than Gen X. And if you're a Gen X, if you're a millennial, well, obviously you know more about your generation than, say, a baby boomer like I am, right? And I'm also saying this connection, and if you haven't read the book by John Maxwell about connecting people, this is so important that we connect correctly with people that come into us. It's just not people come in, we just, like we see them, we run through, it's cookie cutter. Can't be like that. It's flexibility, because we all have a different thumbprint and different generations that come into us and that we take care of. And especially, in my opinion, with Robert F. Kennedy in America, I know I'm speaking to people from all over the world, but in America, per se, it's going to open up understanding to healthcare going across all the generations, especially the Gen X and the boomer generation, who might not have been more aware of what's happening in healthcare. So they prefer teamwork, where Gen X prefers independence, right? So they prefer team. That when they come in, right, to an office and they go through, it's easier for them to go through the different stations that you may have in your office for the different systems and procedures that you're doing. They can understand the unity and the teamwork, and they like that. They like teamwork. I have my 3 boys, they're millennials, and they love teamwork. They love their leaders. They love having team meetings with people that work for them, people that they're with. Team. That's very advantageous for when they come into your office. To If you have an office where there's a lot of team members, that they meet each team member, that they're aware of the team members, and that there's a flow, and they seek a desire for personal growth and opportunity. So they want to grow, they want to understand. They're great in coming to workshops. Millennials are wonderful, high attendance at workshops because they really want personal growth, and we're giving them personal health growth. So we need to understand that. And again, I'm building here. And in my generation, the boomers, 1946 to 1964, right? Workaholics. So boomers, hard workers. And really, a lot of times for boomers, not a lot, but sometimes it's harder to schedule them and to keep them on track because they have busy schedules. Because even though they could be empty nesters, but they could be running businesses and work, and therefore it's harder to schedule them for corrective care sometimes. So we really have to be more stern in educating them about the need for them to come into the office for their health, right? And they have strong business relationships. So it's easier, what I have found, it's easier to have opportunities to speak at different businesses and different, even different churches, but especially in the business realm. Great opportunities with patients who come in who are boomers because they have very, very strong relationships, deep relationships in the communities, and they also are top priority is health and wellness. So, but they have to know that they got to stick to that corrective care schedule. And we have to maybe take a little bit extra time in speaking to them. Now, having said all that, so what's interesting to me is because I'm uh, taking care of a lot of Amish, and people may think that that community is the same. Uh, the younger, whatever, the 20-year-olds are the same as the 70-year-olds. But it's interesting because what I just mentioned with these different generations, it really goes into what I have found personally into all different cultures. It's interesting. So a farmer comes in, whatever, a potato farmer, hypothetical. Now, am I going to speak to a potato farmer, new patient, never met him or her before? Am I going to speak to them about all this scientific verbiage that they're not going to be able to understand, as if I was speaking that way to a CEO of an AI corporation? I speak different. A farmer, I'm just going to break this down, right? Hypothetical. Farmer comes in. If I tell them that I turn the faucet on, right? And the water is running to the end, and I squeeze the middle, is the water going to get to the end? No. Well, it's the same with nerve interference. Press it on the nerve, and guess what? The nerve is not going to function correctly because the life flowing from here to here is not going to get there, right? Or if I'm speaking to an electrician, or if I'm speaking to a farmer, or if I'm speaking to a business person, or if I'm speaking to someone that's in the construction business, well, there's 10 bricks, Mr. or Mrs. Construction Owner. If you have 10 bricks, one on top of the other, you're in the construction building business, and one brick slips out, what's going to happen to all the other bricks? So what do we want to do to correct the problem? I want to put that one brick back, right? So, like Paul says in the Word of God, the Bible, to the Jew, he became a Jew. To the Roman, he became a Roman, right? To the weak, he became weak, right? So I read that because it kind of parallels what I'm trying to speak about. So we don't want to stick our head in the mud. Like God chose Gideon's army because they laughed. They didn't stick their head in the mud, right? They looked around. They were aware. We want to be aware, gang. We want to be aware of the people who come into us. Doesn't matter how busy we are. We still, our team and us, the doctors, want to be aware of people with compassion and love to help them understand the chiropractic message. Remember, with God, all things are possible. You guys rock. March 14th, March 15th. Wow, 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 wow. Pumped up, man. Ready to go. Speak to you soon. Dr. Ben and I, Dr. Eric, we love and appreciate you all. Have a great day.